everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody's being smart. And most importantly, I hope everybody is staying on code. I'm here with some updates and some more information and some more commentary on the whole Tyre Nichols tragedy, because it is tragic. Again, I want to do the disclaimer that I did in the first video. I am not here in any kind of way, shape, form, or fashion to defend the 5 police officers, the 5 black police officers that murdered him. Basically, they beat him to death. I'm not here in any kind of way to defend them, make excuses for them, defend their behavior or anything. I'm just here to give you the information and to give you the news and to give you my commentary on it. Okay? But we do want to make sure that we are holding everybody equally accountable. Everybody that was a part of that scene, everybody that participated in it, everybody that stood around while this man was literally dying. Because I don't think, once he got in the hospital, I don't think he was conscious ever again once he went to the hospital. From the time he went to the hospital on January the 7th until the time he actually deceased on January the 10th, I don't think at any point was he ever conscious again. So he just went through a 3-day process for his body to shut down. But he was basically already dead when they took him to the hospital. Okay, they had already beat the life out of the man. Okay, so in no way am I here to defend the actions of anybody, especially not those 5. However, everybody needs to be held accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable, and in this information, you might hear some things that you didn't know. You might hear some things that you have not heard before. So let's get on into this. Everybody coming in, everybody clicking on the video, please like the video, please share, please subscribe to the channel, please hit that bell notification so you can be notified when we upload videos. And at the end of this video, of course, all of this information, everything that I read from and anything else that I think is relevant will be listed down in the description box so that you can go and you can do your own research, you can do your own reading, and of course you can make your own decisions and make up your own mind about this, about all of this. So let's go ahead on and get on into this, because I got quite a bit to bring you and I'm not trying to be here all day, okay? The first thing that I want to do, the first order of business that I want to handle is there's this rumor floating around on social media, and I believe it's coming from the top. Hold on, that's
the moments that make you.
A beautiful setup. I believe it's coming from the top. I believe it's a rumor that's coming from the top. I believe this rumor is being spread so that the narrative surrounding this man's death can be changed, so that it can stop being about police brutality and start being about, oh, this was a personal vendetta, this was personal beef and all of that. No. This was not personal beef. There's a rumor being spread, something about Tyre working at FedEx and having some type of relationship with one of the cops, one of the black cops, with his wife or his ex or his girlfriend or something like that. Okay, so we want to go ahead on and dispel that rumor. We want to go ahead on and let it be known that his family has come out and spoken about that rumor, and even Benjamin Crump on the Breakfast Club made reference to that rumor, and that there was no evidence of this, that it wasn't true, and that they would be speaking on it at the press conference. Okay, but this comes out of TMZ magazine, January 31st, 2023. Tyre Nichols wasn't sleeping with cop's wife. Stepdad denies rumors. Right? And these rumors have been spreading around with no proof, no evidence, no nothing. And like I said, I believe this rumor was pushed down from the top to try to take the heat off of police officers, to try to take the heat off of police brutality, like I said, and shine the light somewhere else and try to make it a black on black crime. That's what they were trying to do. They're trying to make it a black on black crime. You understand what I'm saying? This didn't have anything to do with race, didn't have anything to do with white supremacy, didn't have anything to do with the system of policing, didn't have anything to do with police culture. This was about a black man, you understand what I'm saying, having a beef with another black man over a woman. That's what they're trying to push. This is the narrative that they're trying to create around this lie. Okay? So this is what Tyre's stepdad had to say. Tyre Nichols was not having a relationship with the wife of one of the Memphis police officers involved in his brutal beating. According to his stepdad, who is addressing a rumor that's all over the internet. Tyre's stepdad, Rodney Wells, denied the scandalous accusation Tuesday during a prayer vigil outside the Nichols home, saying, "My son was not messing around with one of the officer's wives. That's just a rumor." Okay? And they actually have a video of him in here, so I'll let you hear this. This is Tyre's stepdad, Rodney Wells.
The search for
That's not. That's an ad. So we're gonna. I don't think you want to hear that ad. So we're gonna get past that, and then we're gonna come back with what Mr. Wells has to say. Yeah, they be so long. These ads be so long and so unnecessary. Here we go.
Don't anybody believe that mess. They're trying to get out of this, but they're not. The police tried to cover it up. They still trying to spread rumors about my son that are not true. For anybody who thought that these rumors was true, they are not. And to stand up here every day and try to put on this face and all of that, it's difficult. But we have to do it. I have a wife, I have stepchildren that need my support.
Now listen again to what he said. Let me see if I can get it back up. Because it goes right into another ad, but listen to what the dad said.
Butcher box.
Yeah, we got to get through these ads, y'all. But I want you to pay attention to what the dad said when he said they're trying to get out of it. It's coming. It's loading this freaking ad, but it's coming.
Don't anybody believe that mess. They're trying to get out of this, but they're not.
You hear what he said? Don't anybody believe this mess. They're trying to get out of this, but they're not. You see what I'm saying? They're trying to change the narrative. You understand what I'm saying? They're trying to make this, like I said, a black man about a black man against a black man, and this is personal. This was revenge. This was all because he was messing around with this dude's ex-wife or this dude's ex or his girlfriend or his baby mama or whatever the case may be. All of that to take the eyes off of the police. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't somebody right there in the Memphis Police Department that started this rumor. So you have now heard from the stepdad's mouth that this was not true, and that the son, that Tyre, was not messing around somehow with one of these officers' wives. Okay? And then the article goes on to say, for those unaware, there's been a rumor gaining traction online and on social media recently. Folks are claiming without evidence Tyre worked at FedEx in Memphis with one of the officers' wives and had a relationship with her. The implication, the cops were out for revenge. You see what I'm saying? So when you make it about revenge, when you make it about something personal, when you make it about a black man against a black man, it becomes, you know, what they love to use, especially in the dominant society, black on black crime. See, it takes the eyes off of police brutality. Now it's no longer about police brutality. Now it's about revenge. Now it's about something personal, just between two black men. and you take all of the cop culture out of it. You understand what I'm saying? So now every officer that we see beating up people and using excessive force and killing folk and beating folk to death, because this is not the first person that's been beat to death. You know, I guess from now on it's going to be something personal. And it's not going to have anything to do with police culture. It's not going to have anything to do with the violence that comes along with police culture and the fact that they feel like they are above the law. And they can get away with doing anything that they want to do. So that's the reason why this rumor is being spread, is so that they can change the narrative. The implication, the cops were out for revenge. There's also unsubstantiated rumors. The officer in question sent the woman a picture of Tyre after the beating. And none of this has been proven. There's no evidence of any of this. But Tyre's stepdad says the rumors simply aren't true. And it's the first time the family has addressed the claims, which frankly are reckless. And they are reckless. Because if you start believing this kind of foolishness, and if you start believing all of these rumors and all of this stuff that these folks are trying to spread, then you take your eyes off of what your eyes need to be on. You take your eyes off of, and you focus in somewhere else, and you're focusing your attention in a place where where it shouldn't be, and then you just dismiss this as just two black men that had a beef. No, and you'll hear more evidence as we keep going in this video. You'll hear more evidence that proves that that they didn't just do this to him. That this was not just something that they did to Tyre. It went further than they intended for it to go. Yes, it went further than they intended for it to go. They didn't intend for anybody to die. They didn't intend to beat the man to death. But these tactics and the way that they handle this situation is the way that they usually handle situations, especially in this quote-unquote Scorpion unit, okay? So I just wanted to dispel that. And like I said, I'll have the link to the interview that attorney Ben Crump did with the Breakfast Club. Now, I'm not big on the Breakfast Club. I'm not big on Ben Crump. But he said some real important things and some real eye-opening things and some real true things in this interview. So you need to go back and you need to listen to this interview and how he lays out that this case will set the blueprint. This case will set the blueprint on how we handle police brutality cases from this point on, right? And we'll get more into that in a minute. So now let's move on, because here's something else that a lot of you may or may not know. But I'm going to make sure from my end that you know it, right? This is coming from ABC News. This was January the 3rd of 2023 by Emily Shapiro and Ivan Pereira. And it says, 7 officers involved in Tyre Nichols' death, relieved of duty, 3 Memphis Fire Department members fired. Okay? So now, all of a sudden, we're hearing about a 7th officer. Okay? At first, it was just the 5 that I called the Memphis 5. At first, it was just the 5. Those 5 black police officers who were swiftly fired, who were swiftly charged, who were swiftly arrested. Right? Well, then, when the actual video comes out, when the actual body cam footage comes out, we see this white officer. And we see how involved he is in the initial stop. To the point where he's helping pull Tyre out the car, he's tasing him and all of that. And then when Tyre sets off running, because he done been pepper sprayed, you understand, he done been tased and all of this, and he realizes, okay, I need to run for my life because these folks are serious. They intend to kill me. And he takes off running, and the 5 get to running after him. Well, Preston Hill, number 6, the white officer that we know tased him and helped pull him out the car and actually instigated the violence. He was the one that actually started the violence. Well, we know he started the pursuit. He started to run with them, but he ran out of air. He ran out of breath, so he stopped. And they say, now we know for a fact that we heard him say it one time on camera that I hope they stomp his ass. Well, there's actually, as we read on, there's actually a report that says he said it twice. I hope they stomp his ass. So not only did he instigate the violence, but he also helped to escalate the violence. Okay? Seven officers involved in Tyre Nichols' death relieved of duty. Three Memphis Fire Department members fired. Preston Hemphill and another unidentified cop having been charged. So you got Preston Hemphill, the first white officer, and now we find out, you understand what I'm saying, which we didn't know at first, because at first it was only the 5, right? And it was only after the body cam footage came out that we started demanding to know who this white officer was that was doing the tasing and that was so involved at the first scene, the initial stop, right? Well, now come to find out, there was a 7th officer that's been unidentified, that they are shielding and that they are protecting. They won't put his name out. You understand what I'm saying? We haven't heard anything about him. It's stuck right here in these articles where they're talking about where they're finally talking about the EMT workers and the fire department folk that were also fired because of their lack of action in this case. Okay? 2 additional Memphis police officers, including the white officer seen encountering Tyre Nichols during his traffic stop, were relieved of duty, and 3 Memphis Fire Department personnel were fired as the investigation into the death of Nichols continues, officials announced Monday. So it took days for us to find out about Hemphill, and now we're starting to hear more about this 7th officer, who they still have not yet identified. Officer Preston Hemphill and an unidentified officer were relieved of their duty a day after the incident, Memphis PD revealed Monday. So they were relieved of duty a day after the incident. The incident was January the 7th. They were relieved of duty January the 8th. But when all the pictures and all the charges and all the arrests and all of that started coming down, we didn't hear anything about these 2 officers. At first, we didn't hear anything about Hemphill, and we still haven't heard anything about this officer number 7. So who is officer number 7? What part did he play in this? You understand what I'm saying? Did we see him on video? Because I know that after the video came out, there was a picture on Twitter of 8 officers standing around. And in that picture, they were actually numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the question was, they arrested and charged 5, but I see 8. What happened to the other 3? Okay? The Memphis Fire Department also announced Monday that it fired 2 EMTs and a lieutenant who responded to the scene for failing to properly assess Nichols as he lay beaten on the ground. Hemphill, who is white, not allegedly, we saw him do it, deployed his taser during the confrontation. In his own body cam video, Hemphill is seen chasing Nichols down the road, but then turns back to the scene of the initial traffic stop. So see, he had every intention. He was in hot pursuit too, just like them. He had every intention of being at scene 2 where the real beating took place. He had every intention, but he ran out of breath. So he turned around. So either he ran out of breath or he knew what was about to happen and he didn't actually want to be caught there. It's one or the other. But he started out in hot pursuit just like them. Because you have to understand the reason why Tyre got up and started running is because he was constantly being tased by Hip Hill. Okay? Hip Hill was heard on his body camera video saying twice, I hope they stomp his ass. Why? Because he was used to them stomping people. This is the Scorpion unit. He was used to them stomping people. He was used to them, this was the way they rolled. You understand what I'm saying? You have to understand, this was the way that unit rolled. Everybody was just too nonchalant. Everybody was just too comfortable with what was going on. Everybody was too comfortable doing what they were doing, knowing that they had body cams on them. Everybody was too comfortable with this. And then you got other cops stopping, and everybody was too comfortable. So that's the reason why he said, I hope they stomp his ass, and that's exactly what they went and did. They went and stomped him to the point where they killed this man. Okay? Hip Hill and the unidentified 7th officer haven't been fired or charged. So a lot of people were under the assumption that because they said that Hip Hill, this is the one that tased him, the one we know about, the white officer that we know about, a lot of people are under the assumption that because they said he was relieved of duty, that meant he was fired. No, Hip Hill has not been fired. Hip Hill has simply been relieved of duty, just like this number 7 unidentified officer. Those two have not been fired, and they certainly have not been charged with anything. And the only reason why Hip Hill's picture ever came out, the only reason why they ever acknowledged him, the only reason why they ever said anything about him was because of all the attention they were getting. Because everybody was demanding to know who are these other officers. So see, you release this body cam footage thinking that it's going to incriminate only the 5 black officers, which of course it did. But you forgot that there were other officers involved, that there were other people involved in this whole scene that could have done something to stop this. Hip Hill at any point could have said, all right, guys, y'all done too much. You understand what I'm saying? That's enough. Stop right there. Anybody at any moment could have said, okay, we're doing too much. You know what I'm saying? We can't mess around and kill this man. But nobody did that. And what Hip Hill did was he actually instigated the violence, and then he escalated the violence, and then he promoted more violence. I hope they stomp his ass. But he has not been fired. He's probably him and this 7th unidentified officer, the officer that they still have not identified, those two are probably somewhere on paid administrative leave. That's the whole point that needs to get through to everybody. It's not that anybody is trying to defend the 5 black officers, not that anybody is trying to act like they don't deserve whatever they get, because they deserve every bit of it. But if it's going to be done right, it needs to be done right, which means everybody that was at that scene, everybody that participated, everybody that was a part of the violence, everybody needs to be fired, everybody needs to be charged, arrested, the whole 9 yards. Everybody needs to be identified. And they still have not identified this 7th officer. So if they have not identified the 7th officer, this 7th officer, how many is out there that we don't know about that actually participated in this? Okay? Now, this is what they're saying. Officer Preston Hip Hill and the other officers' actions and inactions have been and continue to be the subject of this investigation since its inception on January 8th, 2023. The department said in a statement. Okay, 5 other officers who are all black were previously fired and charged with second-degree murder in connection with Nichols' beating at a traffic stop. Nichols, 29, died 3 days later. So they have a statement in this, the Memphis Police Department have a statement in this article, and you can click on it and you can read the statement, and basically all they're saying is that the reason why Hip Hill and this other unidentified officer maybe the reason why they haven't been fired or charged is because they weren't at scene 2, where the beating and the abuse continued. What they got to do with it? They were at scene 1 where it started. Hip Hill was the main one initiating violence. He was the one that initiated the violence. He was the one that escalated it to that point. He was the one that started the physical altercation by tasing this man when this man was already on the ground. He was already on the ground when he tased him and kept tasing him. That's the reason why Tyre got up and started running. Hip Hill's attorney, Lee Gerald, listen to this, said earlier that Hip Hill was the 3rd officer at Nichols' initial traffic stop. The first body cam footage released Friday was from Hip Hill's device. As per departmental regulations, Officer Hip Hill activated his body cam, Gerald said earlier in a statement. He was never present at the second scene. He is cooperating with officials in this investigation. I guess he is. Sending them 5 down the river. But that ain't gonna cut it. Because we saw the part that you played. We saw that you were the ones that initiated the violence. You were the one that escalated it to the point where this man was being tased after he was already on the ground. He was being tased. And you running after him with the taser pointed at him. And that's the reason why he took off running. The Memphis Fire Department revealed more details Monday about their members' actions during the incident. So basically what happened was they fired EMT Basic Robert Long and EMT Advanced Jermichael Sandridge. They fired those 2, and they also fired Lieutenant Michelle Whitaker, as she sat in the ambulance, in the vehicle, with an unidentified ambulance driver. So they haven't identified the ambulance driver, right? But they have identified her. She was a black woman. Jermichael, of course, Sandridge is black, and Robert Long is the white EMT. So those are the 3 from the fire department that were fired. You understand what I'm saying? And they go on to say, our investigation has concluded that the 2 MTs responded based on the initial nature of the call. Person pepper sprayed. So see, when they called it in simply as a person that's been pepper sprayed. They didn't call it in as a person that they had just about beat to death. And information they were told on the scene, and failed to conduct an adequate patient assessment of Mr. Nichols. Okay? The 3 former fire department personnel haven't been charged. So they haven't been charged with anything. They were just fired. It says here, Nichols' stepfather, Rodney Wells, told ABC News Live on Friday night that he thinks everyone who was active in the whole scene should be charged. And I think so too, because you got all these folks, and you see it right there on the body cam footage. You got all these folks just milling around and standing around and walking around, and nobody rendering any kind of aid to this man. He laying there moaning, calling for his mama, all of this, and nobody doing anything. So I agree with the stepdad. Everybody needs to be charged with something. Attorneys for Nichols' family, Ben Crump and Antonio Romanucci, said they were extremely disappointed that Hip Hill was relieved of duty, but not fired or charged. So relieved of duty simply means he's somewhere on paid leave. He has not been fired. He has not been charged. Neither is this 7th officer that they're refusing to identify. The lawyers are also questioning why the Memphis police did not immediately announce Hip Hill's name, or that he was relieved of duty. So why didn't they release his name, his picture, when they did the 5? Memphis 5. Why? Because they wanted to make this all about black folk. And then they wanted to throw this narrative out here that it didn't have anything to do with policing, that it was about revenge, that it was about a personal vendetta, that it was about a personal belief between one of these officers and Tyre. But when you throw these white folks in there, you understand what I'm saying? All of that, all of a sudden, that whole narrative goes out the window. Why is his identity and the role he played in Tyre's death just now coming to light? They're talking about Hip Hill. They said in a statement, "We have asked from the beginning that the Memphis Police Department be transparent with the family and the community. This news seems to indicate that they haven't risen to the occasion. It certainly begs the question why the white officer involved in this brutal attack was shielded and protected from the public eye, and to date from sufficient discipline and accountability. The Memphis Police Department owes us all answers." Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy said in a statement Monday that the investigation was ongoing and more charges could be filed. "We are looking at all individuals involved in the events leading up to, during, and after the beating of Tyre Nichols," the district attorney's office said. "This includes the officer present at the initial encounter who has not, so far," talking about Hip Hill, "been charged." But they still not mentioning that 7th officer. They still not mentioning that 7th officer, you understand what I'm saying, who was relieved of duty at the same time as everybody else. And they're still hiding his identity, still covering up his identity. Who was that 7th officer? And what part did he play in this, right? So we can't just stop at now that we know who Preston Hip Hill is. No. We need to know who this 7th officer was. And if it's an 8th officer or a 9th officer, we need to know who all of them are. And we need to know what part they played. This includes the officer present at the initial encounter who has not, so far, been charged. Memphis Fire Department personnel and persons who participated in preparing documentation of the incident afterward. So I guess they're also going to start looking at who wrote up these police reports after the fact, because I'm sure that there were other folks that wrote up police reports other than the Memphis 5. I call them the Memphis 5. But I'm sure there were other people that had to write reports on that incident, especially with all those people that were around and all those people that encountered him during this whole tragic incident. And we're not even going to begin to expound on the lies that they have probably put in these reports. The DA's office worked extremely swiftly, but thoroughly to charge those whose offenses were plain and clear and directly contributed to the death of Mr. Nichols. But in no way is this investigation over. Okay, well, Hip Hill's part in it was real plain, it was real clear, and it was real direct. He was the one that started the whole thing. He was the one that got the ball rolling. He was the one that got everybody's juices flowing. Okay? But that question still remains, who is this 7th officer? And why are they shielding him the same way they tried to shield Hip Hill? Okay? Now, let's go on. Now, what we want to do now is, now that we know that there's a 7th officer, now that we understand that there were more people involved in this that have been fired and that have been charged, now we see, you understand, now we clearly see, for all these folks running around talking about this ain't got nothing to do with race, and this is not racial, and all of that, we clearly see that just like everything else in America, the line has been drawn on race. The black officers, within the space of 20 days, and within the space of 20 days, not even 3 weeks, not a month, within the space of 20 days from the time this incident happened until the time that they were fired and charged. 20 days. All 5 officers involved were fired and charged within 20 days. That's how swiftly, you understand what I'm saying, it worked. So just like Ben Crump was talking about and other people are saying, you understand what I'm saying, you have now set the precedent. There is no way now that when this happens again, and it will happen again, you understand, hopefully it doesn't go this far, but I mean, have they stopped? They just killed a legless man in LA, what was it, yesterday, day before yesterday? You understand what I'm saying? They got a video floating around of a white man that they brutalized, and they had the dog on him and all of that just the other day. So it's going to continue to happen because nobody has done anything about it. There's nothing being done to actually stop it. But now when it happens again, you understand what I'm saying? And they're white police officers, clearly all white police officers, there's no way you can come to us. There's no way you can come to the community and tell us, well, there's nothing that we can do. You know what I'm saying? These investigations take time. You know, we have to see everything. We have to put everything in context. You know, just wait till all the information comes out and all that. No. 20 days. You got 20 days to get it done. Especially if you got body cam footage or you got public video or whatever that clearly shows everything that went down. You got 20 days to fire officers, to charge officers, and to arrest them. Why? Because you have shown us clearly that it can be done. And instead of the police unions and the fraternal order of police and all of that coming out in support of these officers like they always do with the white officers and talking about, oh, they justified in what they did, you know what I'm saying, and they have such a hard job and they have split seconds to make these decisions and all of that. Instead of that, they coming out talking about, oh, how heinous this was and how disturbing and how inhumane it was to watch this on video. So these black cops are not getting any of the support that white cops get. But you have set the precedent now. You got 20 days to get it done. We are expecting you to get it done. We are expecting to see some firing and some charges and some arrests within 20 days. If you could do it in this case, there's no reason why you can't do it in the other cases. Because most of these cases have body cam footage. Most of them have video from civilians or from the public or whatever to show what really went down. Okay? But now we're going to go over here and we're going to talk about the Scorpion unit. You understand what I'm saying? And we're going to talk about how this was nothing new for them. How this was this was their MO. This is the way they operated. You understand? This is how they rolled. This is the way they got down. That's the reason why they were so comfortable doing what they were doing. That's the reason why they weren't worried about the fact that body cams was on and all of this was being recorded. Because they had got so comfortable. Why? And because they were a specialized unit that operated under the radar. You know, they didn't respond to dispatch calls. That's not something that they did. They didn't respond to just regular dispatch calls. They had to be called specifically. And we'll get into that, okay? Now, I'm going to read a little bit of this and then I want you to hear something. So this is coming from NBC News, January 26, 2023. Memphis Police's vaulted Scorpion unit under scrutiny after Tyre Nichols' death. So this is before it was disbanded, because you know they have now disbanded the Scorpion unit. This is before it was disbanded, and these are just some people talking about how it was under scrutiny and all of that, and how there were complaints that were coming in from the public about this unit long before Tyre ever had the unfortunate event of having to run into these people. The police chief announced a review of the police department's specialized units including Scorpion, which launched in 2021 to combat a rise in homicides. It says the city murder rate was soaring and residents were clamoring for action when the Memphis Police Department announced a new anti-violence unit with a fearsome name. MPD's new Scorpion unit launched, read a post on the department's Facebook page in November 2021. Remember that date, November 2021. Along with a video clip showing a group of officers in tactical vests at a roll call. The name stands for Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Scorpion. Now is known for inflicting deadly violence on one of the city's residents. Authorities confirmed Thursday that officers from Scorpion were among those responsible in the alleged beating death of Tyre Nichols after a January 7 traffic stop. The Scorpion unit was involved, Shelby County, Tennessee District Attorney Steve Mulroy said Thursday at a news conference where he announced murder charges against the five. And now you notice, when he announced these murder charges against the five, he didn't say anything whatsoever about these other two cops. One who we found out was Officer Preston Hiphill, and the other one is still unidentified. But by the time these charges came out, they had already relieved all 7 of them from duty. So even at this press conference, when he announced these charges against the Memphis Five, he knew about Hiphill and this 7th officer who they are still shielding his identity. Okay? This week, Davis announced a review of all of the police departments. I'm jumping a little bit. I'm jumping around a little bit, but it'll be linked in the description box so you can go in and read the whole article. This week, Davis announced a review of all the police department's specialized units, including Scorpion, in response to Nichols' death. The police department declined to comment further on the Scorpion unit Thursday. Nichols, 29, died January 10th, 3 days after the traffic stop in Memphis' Hickory Hill neighborhood for alleged reckless driving, authorities said. And they still have no proof, they still have no evidence, they still have nothing to substantiate that that he was actually doing any reckless driving. A confrontation followed, which led to Nichols being pepper sprayed and running from officers before he was beaten, Mulroy said. You notice in this they don't say anything about the tasing either. You notice in this. Now this is January the 26th. He died January the 10th. That was 16 days before this. The incident was 3 days before that. Right? So in 19 days, 20 days, they're already been fired. Now they're being charged and arrested. Okay? But you notice, even in this article, where they talk about the charges and where they talk about him being pepper sprayed and being beaten and all of that, you notice they don't say anything about him being tased. They don't say anything about the tasing. And they knew because that was part of the report. Because like I said, you have to understand, by this time, all 7 officers had been relieved of duty. So they knew the part that Hiphill and this other unidentified officer had played in this whole thing. But they were protecting them. Okay? Memphis' Scorpion unit was created in October 2021 under the police department's organized crime unit, made up of 40 officers divided into 4 10-member teams. So you got 40 officers on the Scorpion unit, 4 teams of 10. So you got 10 men in each team, right? Okay, so if there was one team that encountered Tyre on this night. Okay, well, we already had 7 officers, or that's all they're telling us about, 7 officers that were relieved of duty, right? 5 have been charged and arrested and all of that. 2 of them, for whatever reason, haven't even been fired. They just been relieved of duty, haven't been fired, haven't been charged. 1 of them hadn't even been identified. Okay, if these are 10-member teams, where are the other 3 officers? Where are the other 3 officers? Okay? Think about that. The unit was tasked not only with addressing violent crime, but also with investigating car thefts and gangs. The officers' crime suppression assignments changed depending on where crime was worse. Now, listen to this. Like I said, I'm skipping around a little bit. Mark LaSure, a former Memphis police sergeant who retired in 2021, said he began to see a large number of relatively inexperienced officers being put on specialized units as a lot of the police force started leaving in recent years. Such units did not have enough senior staff members training the new officers, he said, adding that was concerning to him. Okay, so if she didn't have, or if they didn't have, the Memphis Police Department or whatever, if they didn't have enough senior staff members to train these new officers, then why are you starting these units? Why are you starting these units and just throwing these inexperienced officers, these green officers out in the street, and you're throwing them in these units, you understand what I'm saying, without any real supervision, without any real training, you understand what I'm saying, without any senior staff over them? Why would you do that? Rookies were getting put on specialized units where they had no business being, he said. LaSure said former colleagues still at the department have told him that the Scorpion unit, which launched after he retired, is known for having a zero tolerance policy on crime, which he said meant the officers do what they can to arrest people. So they go as far as they need to go to get that arrest, to get that collar. Even if it means beating people down, even if it means planting evidence on folk, or whatever the case may be. They do what they got to do to get that arrest, right? The officers charged in Nichols' death were hired from 2017 to 2020. They are 24 to 32 years old. So that's only a 3-year span. So even the one that's been there the longest, that was hired in 2017, by the time this happened, had only been there, what, 5, 6 years? Depending on what date they were hired, had only been there for 5 or 6 years? E. Winslow Buddy Chapman, who was the director of the police department from 76 to 1983, said he was surprised to hear that officers who were young and experienced were placed on a unit like Scorpion. When he led the force, officers were not considered for specialized units without at least 7 years on the job, he said. You're using officers to send a message that we're here and we're not going to tolerate criminal activity anymore, said Chapman, who is the executive director of Crime Stoppers of Memphis and Shelby County, which of course offers cash for tips about crimes. In that context, it can very easily go overboard, which it obviously did in this case. Okay? Chelsea Glass, an organizer with Decarcerate Memphis, which advocates for reform of the criminal justice system, said Scorpion was a rebranding of a common police tactic, a street crime fighting team that relied on low-level traffic stops as pretext to find violent criminals and weapons. They harass everyday residents. And they're calling this high-level policing, Glass said, but it's really just stop and frisk on wheels. It doesn't matter what name you slap on it. Okay? So you had all kind of activists and all of this complaining about Scorpion. You even had former police officers and all of this kind of stuff looking at it and seeing, okay, wait a minute, you setting yourself up for failure. You setting these police officers up for failure. You setting up the exact same scenario that we finally got on January the 7th with Tyre Nichols. You setting it up for that, okay? Now, I want you to hear what a young man had to say who actually had an encounter with the Scorpion unit, just like 3 or 4 days before that fatal January the 7th incident with Tyre. Let me find it. Hold on. It's in here. All right. Here we go.
Accusation Sensation salads come with 2 salad sauce.
Oh Jesus, Lord, these ads. I'm gonna tell you what. All right, now skip ad. Here we go. Now I'm gonna get it all the way back, and I want y'all to listen very carefully to what this gentleman has to say.
The 5 fired Memphis police officers hadn't been with MPD long, and police haven't told us what units they worked with during their time on the force. But some who know the officers say at least one confirmed he, and we're hearing several, were with the newly created Scorpion Squad that MPD started in 2021 as a solution to fight crime.
Their job is to identify the target area, flood that area with officers, and suppress crime in that area, mostly by visibility. Just being present and having the officers there, it sees an impact on it.
And this audio from Broadcastify of police radio traffic the night of Tyre Nichols' beating specifically mentions calling more Scorpion units to the scene.
Listen.
You know, the Scorpion car pull over to East Range and Ross. You have one running on foot.
Cornell McKinney says this.
Hold on, let's go back to that. I want you to hear that.
In units to the scene.
You know, the Scorpion car pull over to East Range and Ross. You have one running on foot.
Cornell.
Now, this is what they said. I'm gonna read it to you. And of course, this video will be linked in the description box so you can go back and listen. But this is the radio that's dispatched that went out that night to Scorpion units. Any other Scorpion car pull over to East Range and Ross, you have one running on foot. So that's them calling in other Scorpion units for this one man. For this one man, you already got 5 on 1, 6 on 1, 7 on 1, however many were there at the initial stop. You already got that many on one man. They gonna call in another Scorpion unit or call in any other Scorpion car. Pull over to East Range and Ross. You have one running on foot, and that's where they were when they beat this man to death. In the initial stop, East Range and Ross. Okay. Let's keep going.
East Range and Ross. You have one running on foot.
Cornell McKinney says the same Scorpion unit stopped him January 3rd, 4 days before Nichols was pulled over.
I actually read it on the back of their vest. It said MPD Scorpion unit.
It was at this Marathon gas station at Ridgeway in Knight Arnold as he was catching a ride with a friend.
All I heard is freeze, get out the car. Put your MF hands up before I blow your heads off. Both of you, get out the car. So put your hands up. So I put my hands up, and one of the officers proceeded to come to the car, and he physically pulled me out by my shoulder with a gun no more than a foot away from my head.
He says the officers in unmarked cars would never say why they had been stopped. He took this picture of the stop. They eventually asked who the drugs belonged to.
I said, man, I just went across the street to get a pizza, and I'm on my way back to the house. He's like, well, who finna ride for this pound? I said, well, can we call my lawyer? And the officers, he yelled out, well, this ain't court, this ain't a time for lawyer. I was like, man, I just came to get a pizza. So he was like, man, we just playing, it ain't a pound in a car. And he let me walk off.
He showed us his call log when he says he placed 2 phone calls to MPD's internal affairs to complain about the officer's forcefulness. But he says he still hasn't heard back. Then he...
So see? So he made, they pulled him out the car. You understand what I'm saying? Pulled him and his friend out the car. Guns drawn. You understand what I'm saying? With all that cussing and all that aggressiveness and all of that. Lying, talking about it's a pound in the car. Who gonna do this ride for this pound in the car? And as soon as he got to talking about lawyers and all this kind of stuff, and they realized, okay, you know, maybe we need to back up a little bit or whatever. And they were in this well-lit place, because in the video it shows the picture that he took of the stop. Their cars, them standing outside of the cars right there at this Marathon gas station. So they realized, okay, we're not going to be able, you know, we're not going to be able to pull it off too easy right here. So we need to just back up off of this one. And that's the reason why they come talking about, man, we just playing. And he also has his proof, his receipts, that he tried twice to call Internal Affairs, Memphis Police Department Internal Affairs, to complain, but he still hadn't heard anything. And this was 4 days before Tyre. You understand what I'm saying? So they might have still been simmering over the fact that they couldn't get that to go the way they wanted it to. So once they got Tyre in the dark, in a dark, quiet residential area, you see what I'm saying? They decided they was gonna take all their frustrations and everything out because they couldn't get it done with them fellas. That's the way the police do, okay? Now just listen.
He saw the picture of the 5 officers fired in the Tyre.
Let's go back.
Then he saw the picture of the 5 officers fired in the Tyre Nichols case.
I was like, that's them. I said, that's crazy, that's them. I said, now they don't really hurt somebody. This could have been prevented if the Internal Affairs took action like I was asking them to do.
We asked Memphis police about the stop involving Cornell McKinney and are also waiting to hear back. Those who know some of the officers are waiting to see how all of this plays out. Former Shelby County Sheriff's Captain Benny Cobb says he has spoken with one of the fired officers, who he coached years ago.
It's been a roller coaster ride. Emotionally for him, he's been in my office. I prayed with him a couple of times, shared some information with him, and now as a result of termination, there are more questions that's being asked. I know the human person. Now, if he's guilty of what he's accused of and what he's been terminated for, of course justice has to be served.
April Thompson, WREG News Channel 3.
And as April.
So, that just goes to show. You understand what I'm saying? All of this trying to act like this was some kind of personal beef and trying to act like this was a black-on-black situation, or this was a man-on-man situation that had something to do with what was going on in their private, personal lives. No. That narrative won't wash. You understand what I'm saying? It won't stand in light of the fact that you have folk like Mr. McKinney, and I've seen other articles of people talking about their run-in with Scorpion. You understand? I've seen people online that live in Memphis talking about, you know, this could have happened with any of these specialized units they're supposed to have running around in Memphis. So to act like this was a one-off, you understand what I'm saying? And this was different because it was 5 black officers and a black man. No. This was still all about police culture. That's what this was all about, okay? And when you listen to the interview that Ben Crump did with the Breakfast Club, he speaks about this young man. He talks about this young man. He talks about that they went to interview him and they talked to him. You understand what I'm saying? And they saw that he had evidence that he had tried to call Internal Affairs twice and never got any response from anybody. Okay? But let's move on to what's really important. And what's really important is this could have been prevented. This could have been prevented at the top level long before we got around to Tyre. This whole thing could have been prevented. You understand what I'm saying? And the way it could have been prevented is by placing all of this, all the focus on these 5 police officers, or even at the end of the day, the 7 or 8 other police officers that were involved. By placing it all on them, you understand what I'm saying? You don't hold the people that are really in charge and the people that really make the decisions, you don't hold them accountable. And that's the top brass. You understand what I'm saying? From the chief police up, from the chief of police up, you got to hold those folks accountable, especially the chief of police. So let's get into talking about the chief of police. You understand what I'm saying? Let's get into talking about what she knew, what she didn't know. You understand what I'm saying? And how she could have prevented this whole thing from happening. Right? Now, let me, hold on a minute, because I just thought about something that I want y'all to hear. And it's very, very important. I don't want her on, I want her on YouTube. Because, I mean, she just puts this thing in the proper perspective. Okay, I don't want this one, but I do want, no. That's not what I want. I want her channel. Hold on, y'all. I'm looking for something. Hold on. Because it's something that I really, 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 really want y'all to hear, because I mean she just putting it out there where it's supposed to be. And laying it right where it's supposed to be. There we go.
Well, retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey.
Los Angeles Police Sergeant.
Okay, now let me get this one.
Demonstrators in
Let me get this one queued up so we can set the scene for what we're about to talk about. But I want y'all to hear. This is retired Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. A lot of y'all might know who she is. Actually, she was in. She might have been in one, maybe 2 of Jason Black's documentaries. She's a retired LA PD sergeant, and she has had quite a bit to say about this whole Tyre Nichols situation. So I want y'all to hear what she has to say here in this video. And I'll have it linked down in the description box, and y'all can go to her channel and y'all can see all of these different, because she's been on CNN, she's been on Fox News. I think she's been on a couple of these media platforms talking about this. And she says the same thing over and over and over again. She's very adamant about this whole thing could have been taken care of, and that the ultimate responsibility for this rests on Police Chief C.J. Davis, right? And that her throwing these black cops under the bus, and eventually she'll probably end up throwing the white ones under the bus as well, to protect herself and to give her time to try to clean up her mess. That's the reason why she hurried up and disbanded the Scorpion unit, because as TD Hip Hop said, she trying to get things cleaned up, and they trying to get things all scrubbed up and cleaned up before the Department of Justice comes in and starts investigating. Okay? So I just want you to hear what a little bit of what Cheryl Dorsey has to say about this as a retired police officer. All right, here we go.
Demonstrators in Los Angeles over the weekend outraged over the death of Tyre Nichols. By now, you probably know the broad outlines of this story. Nichols was repeatedly beaten, kicked, and pepper sprayed by Memphis police officers. It was all caught on body camera footage that was released on Friday. We'll talk about the ethics of publishing that footage coming up, but first, let's talk about the culture of policing and how it led to Nichols' death. Cheryl Dorsey is a retired LAPD sergeant and author of the book Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. Welcome back to Press Play.
Thank you.
Well, the officers involved were in this elite unit, which was called the Scorpion Unit. It's now been disbanded, but it was created about a year and a half ago. And in the past, the police chief praised it for helping lower crime in the city. So I want you to address this unit and these types of units. What is behind the creation of them, and do they actually reduce crime?
Well, it's a specialized unit that was created to have a group of officers who are not tied to radio calls, who can go out and be proactive and do.
Now you heard what she just said, not tied to radio calls. That's what I just said earlier, that the Scorpion unit did not have to answer radio calls. If calls came in, or there's a 411, you know, I'm just throwing out numbers, but there's a 411 over here, or there's a 280 over there. They didn't have to respond to all of that because they were different. They were set apart from the rest of the policing. They were specialized, so they were allowed to operate under the radar. Okay.
You know, what we call observation type activities. You see something that looks suspicious, you've got probable cause to detain a person, you do. And, you know, traffic stops can sometimes be a part of that if you can legitimately find a reason. The vehicle code, certainly here in California, is massive, and all you need is to find someone who's making a right turn and they didn't signal within the last 100 feet or, you know, no light on your license plate. Any little ticky-tack thing gives you a reason to engage someone. And a lot of times, particularly late night when the elephant hunters are out, those guys from the Scorpion unit, you might run across somebody who's got a gun and maybe on their way to engage in criminal activity, or you may encounter someone who's got drugs on them and is involved in narcotics activity. So they have a purpose. The problem with this unit is you have a lot of young officers and no supervisors out there watching them.
Right, and so I've read that the training was basically a PowerPoint training presentation for 3 days, maybe 1 day of target practice and another additional day of some kind of training, and off they went. Is that normal, or are these units there are these units in cities across the country? Are these units usually subjected to more rigorous training?
Well, listen, there's 18,000 police departments in the United States, and, you know, every one is not big like LAPD and NYPD, and budgets are certainly different as well. But, you know, you have in Chief C.J. Davis, a woman with 20 plus years as a law enforcement officer, having been an administrator on 3 different police departments. And so you would expect that she knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And for her to create this unit and give it the name Scorpion, which sounds aggressive in and of itself, stack and fill it with a bunch of inexperienced, unsupervised miscreants is a formula for disaster. She's setting these officers up to fail, and to think that all they had was a PowerPoint display to look at before they went out into the community. And then we now are hearing that there are community members who have been complaining about this unit and no investigations were done. And so she's just as culpable. She has failed humanity as well by not investigating those officers. She's allowed this fire to smolder for over a year, and now we have the loss of a life that probably could have been saved had she done her job.
does it matter? A lot of people were saying, look, racial diversity is one answer to these incidents. If you have more people of color in uniform, you would have fewer of these kinds of problems. But here, of course, all the officers were black. Does race matter at all when it comes to these kinds of things?
Not in my opinion, because you have officers who are caught up in the culture. You have officers who are, in this instance, drunk with power. They understand that they're not supervised. They've been out there behaving this way for probably the entire year and a half that they've been out there, just jumping out of the car, pulling people out, mistreating them, manhandling them, and then they jump back in their cars and off they go. And so when you have a small unit like this, you know, you have officers who spend, 8 or 10 hours together every day, and it's like the Three Musketeers, one for all for one. You know, they all speak the same, they look the same, they walk the same, and it's important in a small unit and any police department to know, can I trust my partner? Is he gonna back me? That's a big thing in patrol. My partner gonna back me? If I tell a lie, are they gonna acquiesce that lie? Well, we see that everybody who was on the scene for that fatal beating of Tyre Nichols was perfectly in lockstep with one another as they lied about the probable cause for the stop, reckless driving, that didn't occur. And the reason for the continued beating, there was no resistance, there was no non-compliance, it was simply punishment.
And what do you make of the fact that they were wearing body cameras? So, these also are supposed to dissuade officers from taking brutal action, and yet I guess they didn't seem to care that they were being recorded.
Well, I think what happened is, and I've seen this happen during my 20 years in patrol as an officer and a sergeant, officers get in a zone. And, you're hyped up, adrenaline is running, you've been chasing this person, over the fence, here and there, and then you finally catch up with them, and you're happy that you caught them if you have a legitimate reason and you think they're a bad doer. But in some instances, there's an unwritten, unspoken rule, and some officers will punish you once they catch you at the end of a foot pursuit. And so they just forget. They forget that there's a camera, they forget that they're being recorded. And in this instance, it seems like they really just didn't even care, because now we know that there were deputies from Shelby County who came up on scene. They don't have a relationship with that agency, I'm assuming, and they weren't even bothered by another police department seeing them engage in this kind of misconduct. And so that's why it's so important to have tenured officers in these specialized units, but more important to have a supervisor who could roll up on that scene and manage that use of force.
Now I'm gonna stop right there, but that's what she had to say. And as you see, she put most of the culpability, most of it, back on C.J. Davis, back on the Memphis police chief. She put it back on her because, like she said, this woman should have investigated. This woman should have known what she was doing. If she didn't have, and there's one video that she did where she talks about, she says that she didn't have enough managers to supervise this unit. Okay, well, if you didn't have enough managers to supervise this unit, then why did you create this unit? If you knew you didn't have enough of trained staff, if you knew you didn't have enough of managers to go out and supervise this specialized team, then why did you create it in the first place? So I will definitely link this video down in the description box, and I would urge you to go listen to all the videos, especially the ones where she's talking about this situation, because she's consistent in every interview, everything that she's participated in, every panel that she's talked about, that she's been on where she's talked about this. She's consistent, and she's consistent in holding the police chief responsible for the part that she played in this. And she's making it clear that the only reason why these 5 officers were quickly thrown under the bus was because she was trying to clean up her mess. This is damage control. And it was just easier to throw them under the bus because they could actually be seen beating this man. So it was just easier to throw them under the bus and to act like she was just so concerned. And it was just easier to go ahead on and disband this unit and all of that and make it look like she was doing the right thing, when if she had done what she was supposed to be doing from the start, we never would have got to this point. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit more about the Scorpion unit, because these are things that we need to understand. We need to understand these things, especially when they throw a black face, whether it be a black woman or whether it be a black man. When they throw a black face up at us and make us think, okay, well, because we have this black face in a high place, things are gonna be different. You know, things are gonna look a little different, and all this. I can say this, with all the black chief of polices that we have throughout this country, you would think that the black population would be would be the most cared for and most protected population in America. Because that's all you see now. It's black chief of polices everywhere. They are all over the country, black chief of police. But yet black people are still getting brutalized the same way we've been getting brutalized by law enforcement since the 1700s. And we need to understand this. We need to understand that just because there's a black chief or there's a black mayor or there's a black politician or whatever, that doesn't benefit us at all. So that's the reason why those of us who have come to understand what's really going on, when they say, well, this is the first black this, or this is the first black woman this, or this is the first black, that doesn't mean anything to us. Because a black face in a high place that's not working to really do anything for the black community, for the black collective, does us absolutely no good. So that's the reason why we need to understand, we need to vet these people, we need to know who these people are when they step into these positions, and we need to understand that they're not there for us. They are there to help promote the status quo. They are there to do exactly what we've been talking about they are there to do. They are there to find their comfortable place and to get their little part of the establishment. And they understand that in order to do that, they have to support the status quo. And the main way to do it is to harm other black people. Okay? So this black woman used these black men, you understand what I'm saying, and used these men in the Scorpion unit to carry out, I guess, her own little sadistic, twisted thing that she might have against black folk or whatever, because she keeps being a part of these types of units. She keeps being a part of these types of units that just go out in the community, you understand, and abuse people, abuse their power, mistreat people, you know, jack people up and all of this, until she finally is responsible for the death of an innocent person that didn't have anything to do with criminality. Okay? So this is what I want to read here. This is coming from the Daily Memphian. January the 30th, it was first published January the 28th, 2023. It was updated January the 30th, 2023 by Ben Wheeler. Scorpion, that's the unit. Scorpion, reminiscent of Atlanta unit once led by Memphis Chief. Okay? And I'm sure a lot of you will know what I'm talking about, but let's read a little bit of this. The Memphis Police Department Scorpion Unit, which MPD announced Saturday is being disbanded, is reminiscent of a controversial defunct unit in Atlanta over which MPD Chief C.J. Davis was once in charge. So this is not the first unit like this that she's been in charge of. Okay? This is not the first time she's been in this position. Well, this is the first time she's been in this position as far as somebody actually being killed. But this is not the first time she's been in this position as far as being over this type of specialized, quote-unquote, unit. MPD said Saturday that Scorpion, introduced in the fall of 2021 as a proactive unit targeting high crime areas, was modeled after the Boston's gun project Operation Ceasefire. But the unit also resurrects memories of Red Dog. And this is what Red Dog stood for. Hold on, you guys. Yeah, we're going to go deep. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, those initials stand for something, just like Scorpion stands for something. Yeah, this is what Red Dog stood for. The acronym is said to stand for Run Every Drug Dealer Out of Georgia. Red Dog, run every drug dealer out of Georgia. And supposedly they were running up on drug dealers. They were running in people's houses. They were stealing drugs from drug dealers. They were stealing money from drug dealers. It was just and in that unit they also used black men. The black men were the ones who went to make sure that they kept the status quo. You understand what I'm saying? And that they did all of this heavy policing and all of this violence and all of this abuse in their own community, the black community. Okay? So let's get back to this article. But the unit also resurrects memories of Red Dog, a part of the Atlanta Police Department's Special Operations Section that Davis led. The Red Dog unit, highlighted in the biography of Davis on MPD's website, was active in the 1990s and was designed to target drugs and street crime throughout that city. Talking about Atlanta. Davis was with the Atlanta Police Department from 1986 until retiring as deputy chief in 2016. She was then police chief in Durham, North Carolina, until becoming Memphis PD's chief in 2021. So not long after she became the chief of Memphis in 2021, by the end of that year, because they launched Scorpion in November 2021, so by the end of that year, she already had her another Red Dog unit. Yes, different name, same thing, right? Memphis City Councilman Jeff Warren said Saturday he has certain complaints regarding Atlanta's Red Dog unit were not a part of Davis's tactics while she was leading the unit. But like MPD's Scorpion unit, to which all 5 officers charged in the death of Tyre Nichols were assigned, Red Dog had its critics. An undercover Atlanta police officer sued the city after being beaten by Red Dog units. So they were so careless about who they jumped on and who they assaulted and who they went after. You understand what I'm saying? Beat first, ask questions later, shoot first, ask questions later, until they actually ran up on an undercover Atlanta police officer and beat that officer down. The officer was quoted in Atlanta media reports as saying some of these Red Dog officers just attack people without any regard, without asking any questions or anything, just attack you. During a 2009 raid of an Atlanta LGBTQ bar due to anonymous tips, 8 employees were charged, but charges against 7 of them were dropped. Officers reportedly subjected patrons and staff to anti-gay slurs and threats of physical violence. Several were fired following the raid, and the unit was disbanded in 2011. Now, if they had been there messing with LGBTQ now, they probably would have ended up being arrested and going to jail and charged with hate crimes, okay? With what the Red Dog officers did, the Eagle Bar raid was probably the least bad thing, said Daniel Grossman, an Atlanta attorney. Grossman's lawsuit helped put pressure on the city of Atlanta to disband the unit. And Grossman said Red Dog was involved in several controversies that included public strip searches of individuals. They patrolled in groups, in packs, like wild animals, in packs, sort of packs in certain parts of town. You see what I'm saying? Grossman said. And they would initiate interactions with people that were very aggressive, very intimidating. So they came up out on you, just attacking folk. You understand what I'm saying? And this is ain't this what it sound like? Oh boy just said about the Scorpion unit. They just came and just gaffled him up, pulled him out the car, guns drawn, talking about I'll blow your head off, and all of this. And this is the kind of stuff that this woman runs. These are the kind of specialized units, you understand what I'm saying, to fight crime that she puts out on the streets, into our communities, into black communities. They roll up on someone, made an awful lot of unlawful stops, like without probable cause or reasonable articulation or articulate suspicion, but then they would take it way further than the law or good policing would allow, and they would rough people up or they would be illegally searched. Retired Atlanta Police Chief Rodney Bryant said in 2021, when announcing a new unit aimed at curbing violent crime, that the new unit would be aggressive, but without the same sometimes violent tactics of the old Red Dog unit. What Grossman described is reminiscent of the body cam footage released Friday from the traffic stop of Nichols. They would be really rough, Grossman said. They were really violent and pretty much intentionally wanted to create an atmosphere of intimidation so that people would go along and wouldn't object. Attorneys Ben Crump and Antonio Ramanucci, representing the Nichols family, called for a nationwide disbanding of saturation units like Scorpion in an open letter to law enforcement officials. Saturation units are the type of units where they just go in and they saturate a neighborhood. They saturate a community with officers, with law enforcement. We insist on reform, transparency, and better oversight of these saturation units, or for their removal as a tactic in American policing. The letter ends, our communities will be far better for it. So that's just a little insight into this Red Dog unit that she was in charge of. You understand what I'm saying? Now you got her creating a new Scorpion unit as soon as she gets to Memphis. Now she didn't do that in Durham. She didn't do that here in North Carolina. When she came here in North Carolina, she tried to put herself out there as a chief of police that wanted police reform and all of this kind of stuff, because she was trying to rebrand herself after all the mess that she had got into in Atlanta. Right? She was trying to rebrand herself. But once she got back to Memphis, then she got back to her old tricks. So this is the way she does business. And the only reason why we all of a sudden, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks we don't see a whole lot of officers being identified and more charges flying here, more charges flying there. Why? Because she's trying to protect herself, especially if folks get to calling for her resignation. And folks get to calling for her to be investigated. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to bring to your attention is let's talk about the type of person that this woman really is. Let's talk about the type of person that this woman really is, and let's make sure that we understand once again that we can no longer, as foundational Black Americans, as Black Americans period, we can no longer depend on these black faces in high places to protect us, to look after our interests, none of that, because that ain't what they're there for. They are there to be the black faces of white supremacy. They are there to keep the status quo running. Okay? Now, this is from the New York Post. This was January 28, 2023. Memphis Police Chief Sarah Lynn Davis fired from previous Atlanta job after botched sex crimes probe. This is by Isabel Vincent. And in this video, you'll actually, I think it's the last picture in this video, you'll actually see a picture of the man that was accused of sex crimes, okay? But let's read this. The chief of police in Memphis, in charge of the 5 officers who fatally beat and tased motorist Tyre Nichols, and of course they're not. But well, at that time, about the 28th, we didn't know anything about Preston Hip Hill. So all of these articles that I'm reading at that time, nobody had released any information whatsoever about any white officers. All we knew anything about were the 5 black ones, right? We didn't find out about the white ones until after they released the body cam footage, right? The chief of police in Memphis, in charge of the 5 officers who fatally beat and tasered motorist Tyre Nichols, was fired from a previous law enforcement job after a botched probe. Saralyn C.J. Davis became the first female police chief in Memphis history in 2021 and is currently in the international spotlight after 5 cops brutally beat Tyre Nichols. She was fired from the Atlanta Police Department in 2008 for her alleged involvement in a sex crimes investigation into the husband of an Atlanta police sergeant, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And it's got a link in here that you can click and you can go read the story over there. 2 detectives accused Davis of telling them not to investigate Tyre Marion Crane, who was married to Sergeant Tanya Crane, after the police department obtained photos of him with underage girls. And you'll also hear, if you watch another video that I'm going to link from TD Hip Hop, that the wife, who was also a police sergeant, actually found some of these photos of her husband with these underage girls, and she actually destroyed the photos. So see, this is how corrupt they are in policing. And in order for you to get anywhere in policing, and you in these big positions of being chiefs and all of this kind of stuff in policing, you got to be just as corrupt. And like I said, you got to be willing to go along with the status quo. You have got to be a cog in the machine. So there is no you gonna get inside and you gonna change the system from the inside. No. Either the system will change you, or it will destroy you, or it'll kick you out. But it ain't gonna allow you to change it from the inside. A federal grand jury later indicted Tyre Crane on child pornography. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of child pornography in 2009, the newspaper reported. The indictment was issued after Atlanta police took no action in the case, and a subsequent investigation by the city pointed to Davis as the reason. Davis was demoted from major to lieutenant before being fired from the force that she had joined in 2008. And then I think they turned around a couple of years later. She appealed. They turned around a little while later and reinstated her. That's the reason why it was 2016 when she left Atlanta and came here to North Carolina, to Durham. But yes, after all of this corruption, lies, you trying to cover up for a pedophile, for somebody messing around with underage children and taking pornographic photos with underage girls and all of that, after all of that, they still reinstated her and gave her her job back in law enforcement. So what does that tell you about law enforcement? What does that tell you about the evil and the corruption in law enforcement when they would give her job back? So as we see, she has quickly thrown 5 black men under the bus, but she went through all of this, even risked her job, and actually lost her job to protect the white man. A sexual predator. So that's what I wanted to bring y'all. I didn't mean to be here this long. Yeah, I didn't mean to take this long, but We need to make sure that all the information is getting out there. We need to make sure that the correct information is getting out there. We need to make sure that we are squashing these rumors and all of that. Because like I said, these rumors are just meant to take police off the hook. You understand what I'm saying? To take the American policing off the hook. To take police brutality off the table. That's the only reason why these rumors are being thrown around. You understand what I'm saying? To take it out of the arena of policing and put it in the arena of, oh, it's just black on black crime. Oh, it's just two black men that were beefing with each other. Oh, it was just revenge. No, that's not what it was. It's the police culture. It's that racist, white supremacist police culture that everybody gets caught up in once they become a part of it. You got to be mighty strong to not get caught up in it. So that's the reason why for all of these rumors and stuff that are going around. And we can't buy that. We can't fall for just any kind of old okie-doke shit that they throw at us that don't make any sense anyway. You understand? But you've heard enough of evidence here today, and you'll hear enough from anybody that's really telling the truth and really giving it to you straight from the hip. You'll hear that no, that's not the way it went down. You understand what I'm saying? Because there were other people involved other than these 5 black officers. You understand what I'm saying? There were white officers involved. Was it personal for them too? You know, and understand this. White folks understand that police brutality exists in the white community as well. You know, there's a video floating around where they said something about Whoopi Goldberg on The View brought up, what is it going to take? Is it going to take us seeing white folks being brutalized like this in order for anything to get done and all of that? Well, they made the racist white folks mad. Okay, and then they started pulling up videos of white people being victims of police brutality, right? Not by black officers, understand? Not by black officers, but by other white officers, right? And as if to say, okay, well, it happens to us too. Why y'all complaining? We're not complaining. We're not out marching and protesting and all of that, but it happens to us too. Okay, but the question is, why aren't you complaining? Why aren't you out protesting? Why aren't you saying enough is enough? You will not tolerate police brutality against your community. And I'll tell you why. Because as long as black folks are dealing with it, as long as you can see a situation like Tyre or George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Tamir Rice or Philando Castile, or whatever, as long as you can continue to see those situations, okay, well, you don't mind sacrificing a few of your own. White supremacy has never minded sacrificing white folks. Just like I said in another video, white supremacy is not a person. White supremacy is the ideology. It's a way people think. Well, actually, it's a disease, really. And it's an evil disease, but it's not an individual person. If white supremacy was an individual person, it would have been gone. But it's not an individual person. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a religion. It's an ideology that is passed down from person to person to person. And white supremacy has always been willing to sacrifice its own in order to remain in power. So as long as black people are being brutalized, you understand what I'm saying? As long as black people are being oppressed, white supremacy doesn't mind if you have to throw 1 or 2 white folks in there every once in a while. Just like when the Klan used to ride. You understand what I'm saying? Anybody that was white that showed any kind of sympathy, any kind of support or whatever for the black folk and for black people that were being abused and black people that were being lynched and killed and having their land stolen and all of that, anybody white that showed any solidarity whatsoever to black folks, okay, well, the Klan would ride against them too. The Klan would burn them out of their stuff too. The Klan would get them and beat them and abuse them and kill them too. So white supremacy has never mind sacrificing its own in order to remain in power. So that's the reason why the white community is not in some uproar all the time about police brutality. Why? They'd rather have the police because they need the police to police us and to brutalize and terrorize us so that they can feel safe, so that they can feel like their power is being maintained. Because they know if they stop police brutality, and they could stop it tomorrow if they wanted to. They could stop it by the end of today if they wanted to. The dominant society has all the power. They hold all the real seats of power in this country. So they could stop it today if they wanted to. But if they stopped it, then there would be nothing to oppress us. So they are willing to be beaten and killed by police and mistreated by police and brutalized by police the little bit that they are willing to deal with that as long as it continues to happen to us. Because our oppression, our brutalization determines whether or not they still have power, whether they still have dominance. And that's all it's about for them. Dominance and power. So understand it. That's the reason why they ain't running around. That's the reason why they ain't protesting and in the streets rioting and all that kind. They'd rather ride over a football game than to ride over police brutality. Why? Because they don't want to stop police brutality. Because to stop police brutality means that you stop us being brutalized. And they would rather they would rather die than to ever see us truly free and truly prospering and truly equal and truly receiving equal justice in this country. Okay? So, like I said, I just want to make sure you're getting the story, that you're getting it straight. Remember, there is a 7th officer. For all we know, there might be an 8th, 9th, 10th officer. You understand what I'm saying? But if we keep applying pressure, if we keep asking the right questions, you understand what I'm saying? Sadly, it looks like the family is getting caught up in this whole Democratic thing, and they're going to allow the Democrats to use them just like George Floyd's family did. They're going to allow the Democrats to use them for pandering and for symbolic shit and all of that. And it's so sad. I hope they don't come off of their square. You understand what I'm saying? I hope they don't get caught up in all of this celebrity and all of this fanfare. You understand what I'm saying? They done had Al Sharpton, who's the biggest opportunities and sellout that you ever want to meet. They done had Kamala Harris, all these folks all at the funeral and all of this kind of stuff. And all they basically did was turn it into a Democratic rally. That's basically all they did. So I'm really, really hoping that the family will step back. You understand what I'm saying? And get some clarity and get some focus back. You understand what I'm saying? So that this won't just be another death. So that this won't just be another senseless death. You understand what I'm saying? Without anything being done. Okay, you claim you got the ear of the president now. You understand? You got the vice president coming and speaking at the funeral and all of that. Okay, well then, what you need to do instead of grinning and smiling and acting like, you done won a prize or something, what you need to be doing is you need to be making some demands on the president, you understand what I'm saying, as far as reparations, as far as an anti-black hate crimes bill. You understand what I'm saying? As far as something about these police, because you cannot reform white supremacy. White supremacy cannot be reformed. White supremacy has to be destroyed. And because law enforcement is the direct offspring of white supremacy, law enforcement can't be reformed. So, let's just, let's send out some positive energy to the family. Let's pray for the family. And let's pray that the family don't get caught up in all that I see them heading to get caught up in. All right? Now, y'all make sure y'all get down in that description box and get this information. Again, like I said, please like this video. Please share this video. Please have these discussions on and off social media. Anytime that you on social media and you see somebody spreading rumors that are not true, shut it down. Shut it down, because we will not allow them to use rumors and innuendos and lies and all of that to try to present another narrative and to try to turn this into something that is not. All the information for the channel is down in the description box. Either email, follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is down there. The PayPal, the Cash App is down there. Of course, my GoFundMe information is down there. If you decide that you want to support that way, it'll be much welcomed. And thank you for all that you do, your subscriptions. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming to listen. The whole 9 yards. But please, like I said, have these conversations. Keep yourself informed about what's really going on. And don't forget, there is a 7th officer out there. Hip Hill still has not been fired and has not been charged. This 7th officer has not been identified, fired, or charged. You understand what I'm saying? We need to know what's going on. We need to know what's going on. We need to know who these officers are. We need to know exactly what part they played. And we need to understand the reason why they still have their jobs and why they have not been fired. We need to know all these things. Okay? So, y'all remember to keep your heads on swivel. Be safe. Be smart. Keep your power tools at the ready. And most importantly, stay on code. All right? Now, y'all have a good afternoon, and I'll talk to y'all later.